business like this tonight. The rains are officially back and Kenyans are already complaining that they cannot sleep at night because it rains throughout.
It is very heavy outside. Sun rising.
Well, we all know that maybe Nabi's prayers finally worked and the heavens have opened. Now, farmers are back to the farms and we can expect that we are going to have food in our farms. Now, there's only one small prayer that we need Nabi to do for us. Pray that once it rains in northeastern part of Kenya, the water floats somewhere just above the ground so the residents do not drown in the floods. If we prayed for the rains, this is a small problem. It can be done. Can I hear an amen? Talk about from one disaster to another disaster. But still, amen. And just because we now have rains should not be reason for Kenyans to forget that the country is still fighting corruption. Now, the one man who has been quite vocal in the fight against corruption is one Riggy, who's quite convinced that former President Uhuru Kenyatta and his men looted over 24 billion shillings and carried the money away in a box.
Money was being brought in cartons at Wilson Airport and flown with choppers to people's homes. And these are the people now, unasikia wanaambiwa kuja andika statement kidogo, anaingia ndege anatoka. And these people who are thieves, who are calling us thieves.
You see, like I said, let not the rains fool you, because the same man who DP Gachagua said was running away from recording a statement is now clean. A man leaving us with the only man that we have seen leaving us with the only money that we have seen in baskets, the only one that has been handled this weekend.
Menituma na pesa taslimu shilingi milioni 5. Na mimi pia.
Yeah. So what are we doing here? Because Uhuru Kenyatta came back and wrote a letter that practically asked Riggy to stop yapping because that money was spent for the purpose it was intended for. So yeah, back to the drawing board, or basically eat that middle finger, Riggy. That is from Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, if the government is losing money, like Riggy is saying, then they have to look for that money. Now, one of the ways that this government has been clear on when it comes to looking for that money is through taxation. And if you are wondering when they are going to lower taxes, then it is going to happen in the next financial year. Yes, that's according to your president. So now, you just have to bear. You're going to be sucked dry. Sorry. That doesn't sound right for business show. You are going to be milked dry for a government that came into being pro-business or pro-hustler. Maybe changing how hustlers pay for their imports into the country will not be how to make hustlers happy. Now, all consolidated cargo into the country will not be rated at 200 shillings per kg as it has always been. A price or term that you will agree is hustler friendly. Now, because the hustler government has to pay the 50 hustlers who come to you in the name of CISs. Now, hustlers will pay for imports based on the value of goods. But is this what you wanted, you ask? Or things have to be in some way get better? They've already attached a time frame to it.
Kenya ya kesho ni Kenya ambayo Mungu ameiangazia. Hii janga la njaa ambalo tunaona leo hatutaliona miaka miwili ambaye iko mbele. Serikali imeweka kila kitu kuhakikisha kwamba.
Hold on. So it is not the 6 months or tukiweka Biblia chini bei ya unga itarudi chini. No. No wonder someone likened their promises to this long-lasting battery at an affordable price. Maybe this guy knew better before he became part of the circus that created ofisi ya Musalia Mudavadi.
Ukichukua chupa ya maji na useme bottoms up na uweke chupa namna hii, sio ni kusema maliza kabisa. If you did this and you say bottoms up, this is the bottom. Mtu anameza kila kitu. Na mwananchi atapata nini? And how are you going to finance this economy? Ya kusema bottoms up. Kwa sababu ushuru pia umegonga wananchi.
Listen, even as we stare at the free movie that DJ Afro is still searching for at Title 4, the economy is looking up, according to the president. Now, that is like saying that man's agreed 4 minutes or 4 seconds of honest work is a thing. No, it's not. And women, in this case, Kenyans, are not happy about the 4 seconds of honest work that you guys are doing. Now, the same way, all the blue chip companies are not feeling okay in this economy. Now, Safaricom went and did the unexpected last week, and its share price became shorter than its CEO by touching 17 shillings. 17 shillings. KCB announced its full year results as well, and the investors were not happy with the dividend payout. In the meantime, to correct all this, let us all call governor spouses to the State House for breakfast and meet TikTokers to advise us on how the government should fight hunger. And if you missed it, the shilling is dying. The shilling is on its knees. Now, so right now, a Kenyan with $100 has 15,000 shillings in his or her pocket. Now, that should not worry us, though, because Moses Kuria is on it. And saying that Moses Kuria is on it or trying to stabilize our shilling is the funny in itself. Now, the reality is that if Kenya does not find a way to stabilize the shilling, we are headed the Sudan or Zimbabwe route. As how we start tonight. Now, the Kenya Packaging Summit culminated into the Afristar Awards that saw top packaging brands in the continent get recognition for their stellar packaging. Let's take a look at how the awards went down at the Sabrit Center through our street business.
The Afristar Awards is a celebration of the African packaging industry. This unique and special event allows us to come together as an industry to recognize and to share with pride the achievements we have made.
We want to encourage, even as Popak East Africa, to have as many companies as possible being able to apply for the Ken Star Awards, the Afristar Awards, the Gold Star Awards, so that you can be able to be globally competitive. It's the first time we're holding these awards, and we are happy, I think. Actually, we are happy. I think every time that you have something that is new, you always have a few bumps, but we are very, very glad to have a number of companies who actually were able to qualify for these awards.
If you want to be on the African stage, may I humbly submit that let your package stand on the African stage. The packs you are going to see here, the few packs you are going to see here, have stood on the African stage.
I will tell you something, it's time for Africa to glow. It's time for Africa to be on the global level as well, next to any other country. You have a lot of nice, innovative products.
They say every journey of 1,000 miles starts with a tiny little step. And so today we're going to showcase for you what that journey is going to be.
And committed to responsibly sourced products and packaging. Nescafe Original 3-in-1. Water in a connected package with a QR code that offers a completely new interactive experience to the users. Executed using 6-color dry offset printing, intricate pre-press origination, and detailed technical work which was required to ensure a clean and exciting result. The Combat and Kung Fu energy drinks, both entered by Gayatri cans, converted by Gayatri cans in South Africa for the brand owner Big Tree in Zambia. The cleaners are available in plastic rigid bottles, supporting the belief that hygiene is everybody's right.
Very honored to be here, and I'm very happy that I took the decision to come, and I'm very grateful for the BPO to send me to represent them in this beautiful country and to meet beautiful people like you and many other people. The packaging summit was really very successful. You were the MC, and I was very happy to see the content was amazing. I was very touched to see the participant waiting till the end. It was the first packaging summit, and I noticed something. I met a lot of students, a lot of young entrepreneurs. They are all eager to learn more about packaging. They start to understand the importance of packaging for their product to be more competitive, more attractive, and more sustainable. I have been working with Zippy for a while to develop the Kenya Star, and I'm happy to be here to launch it as well in the packaging summit. You know, you cannot reach the world star before being a winner in your own country. So really having a Kenya Star is a very big incentive to all the Kenyan company, to all the entrepreneurs, to all the design company as well, to be a winner in Kenya in order to be a winner on the global level. And also Afristar is very important because you need to have more awards on the national level, on the regional level, and both of them are recognized by the BPO. So you cannot go directly to the world star. This is our rules. You have to be a winner, you have to be a star in Kenya and a star on the African level to be able to reach the world star level. Yes, two products. I didn't go to the supermarket a lot, didn't have time, but the Coca-Cola bottle, I was in the restaurant, I was happy to see it without a label. And then I told him I wanted sugar-free, and then he said, it is sugar-free. Look, ma'am. And it was laser printed on the bottle. So it was creative, really, because instead of putting a label to put information about it, they engrave it or inject it directly on the bottle. So I was happy to see it, especially that Japan was one of the winners in World Star for this Coca-Cola bottle. So I was happy to see it here. And the famous bottle of water that I had it in my hotel and that you had an experience on it. It's also, I know that people didn't know how to open it, but it's easy to open it. And it's one of the good accessible packaging design. So I think they can apply with these two entries. And I'm sure there are many other, but I didn't have the chance to see them. You are doing this intra-agreement trade among the African country. I think Africa is there's a big opportunity to be in Africa. It's a big continent, and really I'm noticing day after day that it's time for Africa to grow. It's time for Africa to be on the global market, to access European, Australian, American market, because you have a lot of good product. And I was happy also to see a lot of healthy product, vegan product, even in your market. Quickly, I was seeing some market here. So yes, there's a lot of potential for your product to invade external market in addition to African market.
KenStar was a milestone in Kenya for the first time in our country. We set up a process that will showcase the best packaging in Kenya. So it was a really milestone. From there, we have had conferences and exhibition, and now we have climaxed with Afristar to showcase the packaging excellence in the continent. And this is of major and significant importance to brand owners in Africa, to converters in Africa, because at the moment we are talking about Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Now with our partner Propac, who is running these exhibitions around Africa, our packaging of Kenya, our packaging of Africa will get a chance to stand on the African market, because ProPack is all over the continent, and wherever it goes, the packaging will be showcased. And this is a powerful way of increasing the visibility of your brands and your product, and also showing that you as a converter, you are making packaging that can stand out on the African trade. So it is important for us in Kenya and in Africa to start showcasing our products and our packaging, so that it can be easily recognized. And it can, when you are in Nigeria, you can see this is the brand. This is Ketepa tea. You see, like Coca-Cola, wherever you are, you just know it is Coca-Cola. Nobody needs to tell you. So we want our brand identification to be seen around the continent. And that is the only way, one of the most effective ways of promoting the intra-Africa trade under African Continental Free Trade Area. It will not just happen until we start taking action. We have very good brands in this country, and they just need to exposure, and they will be able to be seen and be recognized at the world stage. You see, we have pronounced ourselves as a country under Vision 2030 that we want to be globally competitive. And this is a platform where we can be globally competitive, because your pack can stand on the global stage, just like our gold medalists stand on the global stage. And they are seen and they win. So why can't we win also in this space? We have seen a lot of innovations in the mobile money business, like Safaricom, M-Pesa, and all this. So we need to see more innovations in every area. So we are giving an opportunity for the brand owners and the manufacturers to also be recognized and be celebrated. You know, a lot of times packaging people do a lot of work, but they are not celebrated. You see, journalists do a lot of work, they are celebrated, they are given awards. And these people who do the donkey work from morning to evening, they have sleepless nights. They make it possible for our products to come from the point of production to the point of consumption. There is no recognition. We only remember the bad things that happen, but not the good things that they happen. So yes, in Kenya, especially in Africa, we have packs that can go on the world stage.
So on the sidelines of the Afristar Awards, something that has come out is that the Africa Free Continental Trade Area opens a lot of opportunities for local brands, not even African brands now, because then IOPPK has recognized the importance of first awarding local brands that are leading in packaging that will then grow to the Afristar Awards, that is, those ones who are leading in Africa, which then will grow to the World Star Awards that Sola has just been speaking about right now. So speaking to the WPO Vice President Sola right there, and speaking to the CEO right there, Mr. Joseph Nyongesa, you will see that there's a story that is getting told here, that now is the time for African brands, more so Kenyan brands, to think much about packaging. And throughout the summit, what has come out is that packaging is not just the design or just the item that carries the product. There's a lot that needs to go into it. Some of those items that have been highlighted by majority of the speakers right here at the summit. Guess what? So hopefully next year, when we get to talk about the Ken Star Packaging Awards or the Afristar Awards, local brands will be recognized, just like we've seen today. Brands from across the continent also get recognized. All right, from the summit right here, my name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiagi. We'll see you again probably next year on this particular one again. Good night. Welcome back to Look Up Business. Thank you very much for still sticking with us here at Look Up TV. And now on to the big conversation for this particular episode. I'd like to introduce it like this. Now, according to Statista, it will be viewed that the average amount or the value of the film industry was almost $76.7 million in the year 2022. Now move away from that and let's look at exactly what is happening here locally. Now Kenya's local film industry, however, continues to suffer indifference from its own. And the only reason as to why majority of analysts look at it from that perspective is because there's a weak big screen culture in the country. It will not be argued that Kenyans do not like their own. They do. But then analysts looking at this particular phenomenon will say, because they do not also adopt the big screen culture, that's why the performance of the local film industry continues to suffer. Now, today, the question we ask is why that even with international filming locations, that's one, and also brilliant producers and thespians to showcase, why are we pegging the success of the local industry just to a few films years back? That's the conversation that we're having tonight. And to help us then go deep into that conversation, we are joined on set by John, the legend, filmmaker and producer. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
Happy to have you around, man.
Thank you for having me.
Here's the thing. If you listen to my introduction, people would agree that indeed, if you're looking at the local film industry, you have to travel way back and look at just a couple of films that have had a big screen success. Let me begin from there. Can we blame it on the lack of big screen culture in the country, or there's something that we're looking at that is not essentially pegged to the big screen culture?
Well, what's happening in essence in the film industry here is a lack of interest from the government, on the governmental level, investors and filmmakers. There's no cohesiveness. There's no bridge between these two organizations, these three places. So what's happening is in a film industry such as Kenya's film industry, yeah, it's quite young. If you compare the Kenyan film industry to the American film industry or Bollywood, how old is the Kenyan film industry? Roughly 50 years, 60 years perhaps? Yeah? So it hasn't matured yet to a point where it becomes a viable sort of like vehicle for investment. So therefore venture capitalists, film investors, they do not see the path to fruitful investments, whereby now the culture will suffer. Cinema, big screen cinema, as you put it, people don't see the value in it in terms of, because if the value is not there, you're not going to attract the investors, and people are not going to essentially see the path to say, for instance, if somebody wants to invest 20 million shillings, what will they do with it? They'll invest probably in an apartment building, in a condo, you see, because they see that there's something tangible, where in the movie industry, that tangibility is not there, it's not present. So they do not see a correlation to putting an idea together, a script, a film, shoot it, and then show it on the big screen. Therefore, the culture suffers because the support system is not there to support the culture.
Yes. Pretty much. Let's move on to the next area that majority of people, and even before we get there, legends. From where you stated, it's a conversation that has been going. I mean, you have to go back to 2012 to get Nairobi Half-Life. Right. That had a massive success in the big screen in the country, right, and also even got international recognition. So from there we thought, a springboard then for local film success. But since then, we haven't seen that much. From where you stated today, where do you think 2023 will take the local film space?
Right. See, 2023 is going to be very interesting. It's a very interesting year. Now, with the advent of AR and AI, there are possibilities that didn't exist before. Entry-level cinema cameras and editing suites are getting a lot more affordable.
Yes.
The knowledge base is there. And now with accelerated learning, that means a lot of filmmakers, they don't even need to go to film school anymore. They could just essentially go to, I guess, what we call YouTube University, and learn a few tricks and then learn on the job. I'm not saying do not go to film school, Film school is a very good, again, avenue to learn the culture, to learn the lingo, to learn the language, because filmmaking is another language. You have to learn the language. You have to learn the process, yeah, to be an effective filmmaker, whether at every level, whether you are a writer, whether you are a camera operator, a producer, all that, you have to know the language. Now, 2023 is very interesting because now the film ecosystem has the level playing field has been set.
Yes.
Now, whether you're in Nairobi or you're in Los Angeles or Mumbai, you have access to the same technology pretty much, whether it's in a small package like a mirrorless camera or DSLR camera or entry-level cinema camera. You are able to produce phenomenal content. And there are, at this point, there are no excuses not to be able to actually leverage your network, yeah, whether it's through your friends, your colleagues, your acquaintances, to say, hey, I need to borrow a camera to shoot a short film this weekend. It's entirely feasible. And it's by building on top of these building blocks that you'll be able to, in fact, leverage your film making potential, and it has a compound effect where one film led to another, a short film to another short film, and eventually to a feature film. And the reason you mentioned Nairobi Half-Life, like that was 2012. Why has it taken 10 years and almost 11 years? Why has it taken so long to achieve another level of success, such as what happened in 2012? The reason being, people sit on their laurels far too often. When you achieve success, you have to look to the future, right? Or in the present, yeah, because you have to create in order to create to achieve success. You cannot rest on your laurels and your past glory and thinking, well, this is going to carry me over into the next, it's been a decade. Now what's happening in this decade, right, since Nairobi Half-Life, it hasn't translated to what's happening now because, again, it's all about the support system. And let me put it to you this way. For instance, the film industry in Kenya, right? On the governmental level, there are no tax incentives for filmmakers to create films, right? But did you know that in Europe, there are about 15 to 17 countries that offer tax breaks for filmmakers at every level, whether it's Belgium, whether it's France, whether it's Ireland, whether it's Belarus. A lot of these Eastern Bloc countries offer anywhere from 25 to 35%, some of them 40% tax break, tax incentive. And here's where it becomes very interesting, because when you look at tax incentives, I think what's happening here in Kenya, the government doesn't really see the path to recuperating those tax shillings. I was going to say dollars, but shillings, right? So what happens is, let's say a crew of filmmakers come into the country. They want to shoot a feature film. They come in at 100 film cast and crew into the country. By giving them a 35% tax break on their film, and also there's a tax break on the pre-production and production, and also if they want to actually utilize post-processing facilities within the country, they also get another tax break, right? For VFX, they get another tax break. That happens in Canada, that happens in Europe, that happens in Ireland, in Australia, Austria, all these places, yeah? Anywhere from 15, 20, 25, 30 to 35, some countries even 40% tax break. Here's what happens. Once you introduce these tax breaks, now those film crews, they have an incentive to come and shoot into your locality. And what happens, 100 deep as cast and crew, now they'll need accommodation, they will need food and beverage, entertainment, drivers, all these. So you're creating some fringe employment within the industry. And what happens with all these fringe benefits you create? Now the government will actually collect tax from all these fringe. So that 35% tax break you afford to the film crew, now that money is recuperated twofold, threefold, even fivefold from fringe taxes that you collect from these fringe consumables that the crew consumes, whether it's entertainment, they go to a bar, On their day off, what do? Entertainment. They drink. They buy food. And even on the way out, they go to the market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They buy little trinkets. They go to the Maasai market. They buy trinkets. They buy souvenirs. Again, once these markets, they sell these things, what happened? They pay taxes on it. So there's an influx of cash. And also, there's tourism. Kenya has some of the most beautiful scenery. You go from mountaintops to valleys to dormant volcanoes.
And that's internationally, by the way.
Yes.
Some of them that have been used by other films that have been shot here locally,
Right.
and they're going to acclaim international success.
Exactly.
You like to think that that would be a marketing platform for the country's film industry? It has not.
It has not been. But why is that? Why do you think that is? That's because the government doesn't really see the path to monetizing because these are national treasures. These are, you got sand dunes, right? You have lush forests, you have mountaintops, you have the coastal region, pristine beaches. These are all great locations. And I guarantee you, if these locations are showcased in blockbuster movies or even television shows, the tourism sector will see a boom.
Pretty much, isn't it? Let me point you to one of those industries that have been international success, and so that we can go back and ask ourselves the question: is there something that we need to copy? From what you've said, if you look at even the top 20 box office year in, year out, there's one that keeps on dominating it: Bollywood.
Yes.
And now, every time you look at these particular films that they keep on producing, you say, proper investment, proper casting, proper locations, proper technology. Is it possible for the Kenyan film industry to say, can't we pick a couple of the things that they're doing right there in Bollywood, and then use that as our marker then to also getting into the market?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Kenyan film industry could take a page out of the playbook of Bollywood, even Nollywood.
Even Nollywood now. I want to talk about that as well. When it comes to Africa film industry, isn't
absolutely.
it? They've taken it over. I mean,
absolutely.
You can sit back and say, well, Nollywood is all. It is there, whether you like it or not.
Absolutely, because now they're one of the biggest GDP contributors in the Nigerian economy. And that being said, they also have the support of the local base,
yes,
that again consumes their content day in, day out, but also their approach to content creation, to filmmaking, is a little bit different from that of Bollywood or even Hollywood. What happens is a lot of these movies go direct to DVD or direct to VOD. Yeah. Again, we can't neglect that, because whether you like it or not, this is the 21st century. So a lot of people know this is a powerful device. A lot of people consume their media through tablets or through their phones, right? Big screen, of course, you cannot neglect big screen, because it's a different experience. Yeah. You go to the theater, you buy your popcorn, you buy your drink, and then you with your significant other, or or with a group of friends, and you enjoy a cinematic smorgasbord,
yes,
so to speak. Now, in Nigeria, I've never been to Nigeria, so I don't quite know the layout of, in terms of big screen culture. I don't know what it's like. But for a fact, I know that, a lot of these movies go direct to, even to YouTube, to VOD platforms, direct to DVD still.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think Kenya could actually adopt the same culture. I'm not saying go and build, 20,000 big screens. It's not feasible at this point, because right now you'd be playing catch up. The movie industry in America, big screen is a culture. It's been there since the 40s.
Yes.
Yeah. To this day, you have Magic Johnson theaters. He's got screens all across, I think over almost 50 states, right? So the culture has been there already, but now the VOD, the digital delivery systems are there. Again, film does not have to be consumed solely on big screen, because now usually what happens, there's a theatrical release, then eventually it migrates to secondary screens, and then it goes to DVD release or VOD platforms. Yes. And even things like Netflix, again, came onto the market, and they saw a niche, and then they inserted themselves into that niche, and then they're being really successful at it. And now you have the Hulus, the Disney Pluses, you know, all these other platforms. So I think the Kenyan film industry could take a page out of every single book,
pretty much,
and then do a hodgepodge of all these technologies and bring them together. And whether you're gonna implement big screen culture, well, not as to the extent of the Americas or Bollywood, but you could still implement that culture where you still have a theatrical release, but also don't neglect the digital platforms and so on and so forth, and penetrate these platforms at every level. Whether it's in the city of Nairobi, whether it's in the in other provinces, or there's no provinces here.
There used to be,
right? Counties,
yeah, counties,
right? So in that sense, you have to cater to the people. What's accessible to them in terms of access to technology. This is it. This is what is.
That's why a majority of them are.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what I want to talk to you about then. Because with the introduction of these devices, you're consuming content on demand as you go by. There is now Netflix, which you would agree that is a big culture now, right here in the country.
Absolutely.
You gotta be careful about how to answer this question. I've sat right here in the studio and I've spoken to a film producer who got the film onto Netflix last year. Is one of a kind. And in fact, they're celebrating and they say, wow, we are now into Netflix as well. Can I ask you this? With the criteria that Netflix then uses to actually onboard films on their platforms, they haven't created Netflix Nairobi, Netflix Kenya, so that now when you go into Netflix, then you only see the Kenyan films that are in Netflix. There hasn't been that. Right. Because once you're there, you're competing with also films from the different parts of the world.
That's right. That's right.
Gotta be careful whether you answer this. Do you think with the entry of Netflix now worldwide in Kenya, is it gonna kill the film industry, or it's gonna prop it up?
Great question. The introduction of Netflix in the Kenyan landscape is a good and a bad. Right? Is a good side of it, and is a bad side of it. Let's talk about the good side. The good side is about it introduces it gives us accessibility, right? If let's say any Kenyan filmmaker wants to place a film on the platform, it is feasible, but you have to follow a stringent process to onboard your film. That's the good. The possibilities there. Now the bad part about it, the bad side of it, is the fact that, as you mentioned, Netflix does not have a Netflix Kenya, where they do have Netflix France, they have Netflix Belgium, they have Netflix of Singapore, they have Netflix, all these other localities. And the reason that exists, the reason they have their own Netflix branch in those localities, that's because the government in those localities insisted on setting up such a structure. Because again, remember, film is not just entertainment. Film also encompasses culture. It encompasses entertainment, of course, knowledge, right? It's edutainment. And again, it's not so much a preachy sort of approach to culture or to teaching. But again, there are certain things that are subtle, right? That's why it's called programming. Certain programming is being put out there unbeknownst to us, but subconsciously, certain processes are put in place to either liberate or enslave our minds, you see? So now, the governmental bodies that govern the film industry in Kenya, they have to step up and say, listen, you are actually selling memberships into the country. Though the countrymen of Kenya, they need to see representation. They need to see themselves. And there's, like you mentioned, there needs to be a section where this is Kenyan films produced in Kenya, of course, commissioned by Netflix. And again, let me give you an example. For instance, in France, before Netflix could actually penetrate that market, there were certain guidelines that they had to follow. First of all, if you're introducing any film into the country, it has to be dubbed in French. Not abroad, but you have to hire local voice artists to dub the film, it has to be dubbed in a studio in France. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So all these things were stipulations. They had to do these things. They had to put them in place before they could set up shop. They also had to set up a branch of Netflix into France to produce local French movies for the platform. But in Kenya, nobody's advocating for that. No one's pushing Netflix. Of course, Netflix is not going to hand you everything on a silver platter unless you demand it. Don't ask for it. The Kenyan film industry they have to demand it. It has to be in the law.
Yes.
Before you set up shop here.
Yes.
You have to do these things. You have to make sure you establish a Kenyan studio, set up by Netflix. You have to make sure there are fair practices as well, because I know of certain films that were onboarded in Kenya, they were paid peanuts compared to what the same level of excellence that was produced somewhere in the Eastern Bloc. They get way more money for their film than the Kenyan filmmakers. But again, I think also it's sort of like something that happens even in the music industry, where you want to get a foot in the door, so you'll accept certain deals because you want to have that stamp. Oh, I'm on Netflix. But you're on Netflix. Netflix is capitalizing on your creation, on your intellectual property, where you're not being remunerated properly for your hard work.
That you're putting there.
Yes.
Pretty much. I've got to point you out to what is working in the country. Television production. I mean, there's a market there. I mean, when you talk to television production producers, they will tell you, yeah, because for them, it's easier for them to say, well, if we can't put it on the big screen, then essentially let's go to other modes of distribution. They're using Facebook now, they're using Twitter now, they're using YouTube, which is a big earner for them as well. So when it comes to the shows market in the country, TV stations are taking them up.
Right.
Online platforms are taking them up. So you can't say that there isn't something that really working in that direction, which is why this question will be quite important. Do you think it's time that the film industry then said, if big screen is not going to work for us, then let's change our mode of distribution, probably go the Nigeria way or go the shows production way in the country?
Right. Well, interesting, because again, see, the TV production houses, they sort of they got it right in that sense, because they realize, okay, we're not going to fight with the other branch of the industry, which is, big screen, like long format creation, which is, feature films and so on and so forth. So they opted to go the episodic route, and that works very well. But even then, I find there are certain things that could be done to streamline things and to make things better, or also to establish the parameters where the actors will be paid properly. The production cycle will be less grueling, because again, once you start cutting corners in terms of a grueling schedule of shooting episode after episode after episode, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You can batch shoot, but then the working conditions have to be they have to be adequate for the crew, the well-being of the crew and cast. But again, the TV producers, they have that part right, where now they realize, okay, this is something that's working. Let's just focus on that. But I think there also needs to be innovation. Things have to be taken up a notch, where you could, across the board, whether it's through the Actors Guild, whether it's through the Teamsters, whether it's through different unions of the filmmakers, these things have to be put in place to ensure that the quality of the production doesn't stagnate, but it keeps going higher and higher.
Fantastic. Let me come to a point that you mentioned, technology, fast moving. And you said it's getting cheaper, but then at the rate at which it's moving fast, again, for an industry that wants to catch up, well, you find yourself being left behind.
True.
You spoke about AI, you spoke about different technology, editing and production technology that is coming into the market, which for the industries that have developed, for the other markets, they're lucky then they can actually get to adopt this quite fast.
Yes.
Do you think that's why it also starts beating us, in the sense of that you've not really focused, or you've not really organized your house, but then around you, so many things are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing, it's an approach that we have to be really careful when it comes to adopting new technologies, because then I'm sure you've heard of ChatGPT, and because it's been all the rage lately, yeah. And when you look at such things, of course, you have to have the infrastructure to implement, but it is there. It's accessible. But at the same time, how you utilize it, where you're not going to undermine the creative base, yeah. But at the same time, there's a new skill set that needs to be acquired to use these technologies effectively. For instance, AI, for instance, you could do things like deep fake, right?
Yes.
Where you could, essentially make me look like, you, and vice versa, and then even our voices could be replicated.
Yes.
Now with AI, but there's also AR. AR is essentially what we're doing here. Essentially, you and I it's a form of AR, but it's sort of like an analog type of AR that is now ported to the digital. For instance, for those of you who are watching right now, or for those of you who are watching, you won't see what I'm saying, but it's essentially it's chroma keying, green screen. Yeah. So it's a form of AR, it means augmented reality. So we could replace the background or whatever we want. But now with AR in the digital realm in the 2023 and forward, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond, for instance, your green screen now will be replaced by sort of like a crescent shaped wall of screens that essentially projects your scene behind you, whether it's a forest or a beach.
Yes.
But even the floor has screens embedded into it. So if a wave is crashing against against the shore, that's also represented on the floor. And the cameras are equipped with sensors. When the camera moves, the background moves, and like in real life, if you point your camera into a certain direction, of course, you're going to have a different perspective. You're not going to see the same image carried over. So you're able to pan, tilt, and zoom the camera into the scene. So this is the technology we're talking about, which is still quite cost prohibitive, but it's actually coming down to the ground level where you could actually build such a system at a very affordable price. All these technologies are there, they're affordable, but then again, how do you transition from what we are doing now to where instead of traveling 100 miles, like 300 miles to a location to shoot, where you could shoot it right here in the studio, where the AR, augmented reality, will afford you the capability to replicate certain things. It doesn't mean you're going to eliminate location shooting altogether, but then think of it this way, like in terms of like a pickup. You want to do a pickup shot. The whole cruise is gone. You've wrapped. You need some B-roll. Now you can't travel to the location where with the whole crew again. Now you can go into a studio and set up AR, and then basically recreate the scene as if it were
right now,
right there in the location. Exactly. So that's all feasible right now. So these technologies are there. Now, again, it comes down to investments, to money.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Pretty much. I want us to clear this conversation like this, Legend. Two things. One, from where you're sitting, what should we look forward to 2023, both locally and internationally, but with a more stress on the local film industry? And when it comes to investments, who are we going to blame? Are we going to blame the sponsors themselves? Or are we going to blame the producers of film industry in Kenya who have not really done enough then in terms of marketing the business? Let's attack those, and then after that we clear.
Right.